I'm Teaset, and this is a tea time lapse. There's going to be a lot of sketching in this video because today we are talking about concepting my different fairy characters. The basis of the 4 tea time characters is a concept for a mini-game I have, for if in the future my health were to improve and I wanted to try streaming. First up are the leafworker gnomes. Leafworker gnomes are the fairy that like crunchy foods. So when I was thinking about what a character that would like crunchy foods would look like, I thought of crunchy autumn leaves, and I thought a mostly concealed face peering out from the leaves would be fun. The leaf poncho or cape was a cool idea, but it left me with too many logistical problems of how the character would interact with snacks since it concealed the arms completely. So after leaving the idea on a back burner for a while, it occurred to me that I could give them a little leaf vest or shawl. And I realized that I could make their mustache be like pine needles. And from there I started considering, well, maybe these fairies like to make things out of leaves, and so the name leafworker gnomes came forth. There are multiple leafworker gnomes, they are a whole society of craftsmen, but there are 3 leafworker gnomes in particular who come to visit Teaset for tea. The leafworker gnomes are honestly my favorite fairy design that I've come up with so far, so I'll probably start working out the designs for individual leafworker gnomes very soon. Leafworker gnomes are often referred to with the he-him pronouns by humans, but they don't have a human concept of gender, and honestly don't really care about humans very much, generally speaking. They're much more content to focus on their leaf working, and the health of the trees in the forest they call home. If you befriend a leafworker gnome, maybe even gift them some beautiful leaves you've found, they may even bring you some of the tree nuts they've gathered. Mallow fairies were the first fairy that I developed a working design for. They love soft, chewy foods like mochi, and so I thought of the moomins who have very soft bodies. But this ended up leading to a design that didn't feel enough like it was my own and looked too similar to the moomins. I tried adding butterfly wings to the back to differentiate them, but ended up having difficulties with there just not being enough real estate there between the tail and the bulbous back of the head. Even so, in the time that I was working with this previous design, I feel like I got to know their personality and the way that they move, although I feel like they got a little less shy more recently, a little more playful. Here you can see one hiding behind a hohin teapot spirit. You've actually already seen these 2 sketches if you've been following my videos for long enough, but I thought I would include them since they're a part of the journey of this character design. Oh, this one was a cute illustration idea that I never ended up returning to. Mallow fairies are named after mallow flowers or marshmallows. The confection is named after the flower. I believe marshmallows are white, but other types of mallows are purple or pink. While I designed mallow fairies with mochi in mind, I thought that marshmallows would be a nice reference point since mochi is specifically Eastern and most of the characters are going to be a little European flavored. I started work on most of these characters back in spring of this year before returning to them this November. And it was in November that I resolved to try something a bit different with the mallow fairies. A number of mallow fairies live out in the little garden Teaset has next to her cottage. The ones who visited her were introduced to mochi for the first time, and they were enamored. They immediately declared Teaset their dear friend and became regular visitors during tea time. Mallow fairies love to collect anything that strikes them as cute or fun, and your small belongings may inadvertently end up in their possession. They'll give them back to you in exchange for something else they want, but they're easily befriended and may bring you flowers in the spring. They're just here to have a good time, and they love exploring. Each type of fairy has a preference for the type of texture they enjoy in their snacks, and within that type of fairy they each have different preferences for flavors. Visually, what will vary among the different mallow fairies is the exact color they are, and which accessories they wear, whether those be bits of string or ribbon that they find around the cottage, or flowers from the woods and garden. I think something I'm likely to continue fiddling with is the exact shape of their head and muzzle and eyes, but I really like their ears and tail and their little round belly. You can see the proportions revert for a while here, because of the way I did this in 2 separate files. For this set of pictures, I tried to do stronger blue shadows than I normally do. It was in this file that I messed around with the eye shapes to see if something else fit more, but I ended up deciding just to make them a little less tall. Dandelion fairies started out looking a lot more like their namesake, specifically when dandelions are in their puff form. While cute, I again ran into the problem of this just not feeling like something I drew. It felt like I was copying someone else, which wasn't going to work in the long term. But then one day I had the inspiration to make them more dog-like. The only problem was initially they were too dog-like. Something about them needed to be different so that they weren't just a tiny dog. I thought about making them a little caterpillar-like, having 6 legs. I thought about giving them wings maybe, or changing their ears. And then I thought, maybe bird feet? I always misremember Heen from Howl's Moving Castle as having bird feet, but actually he just has like weird, furless little feet. On the topic of dogs, I think I might actually make a ghost dog be one of the occupants of the cottage. One that is based a bit on my childhood dog, who passed away a number of years ago, and who I very much miss. Dandelion fairies are very friendly and can often be found around other flower fairies, such as mallow fairies. With their little bird feet, they're very good at climbing along narrow sticks, and can sometimes reach places that the mallow fairies struggle to. What a dandelion fairy wants the most is companionship, fun, and good food. Their favorite snacks are the ones that are soft, like cakes and breads and scones, but not the dry scones that you often find in American cafes. Served cake at tea time, they will eagerly scarf it down. When a dandelion fairy wears an accessory, it has usually been bestowed upon them by another flower fairy that they have befriended. Because while their bird feet do allow them to grab objects, it's difficult for them to affix something to their own heads. All dandelion fairies are a good boy. I will probably keep adding designs to my collection of flower fairies, but the mallow fairies and the dandelion fairies are the only flower fairies that are regular guests at tea time. Mechanically in the minigame, each of the fairies would want you to pick their favorite snack. There would be 2 stages to the game, picking what texture and then picking which flavor. And I've also thought about how I would implement special seasonal options that would only be there for a limited time frame. The version of the dandelion fairy in the group picture doesn't have any accessories, but I thought he looked a bit bare and plain in the solo image, so I gave him a little violet. My earliest idea for Nonna Mela was a bird with an old woman's face, inspired a bit by Clot and also Yubaba from Spirited Away's bird form. I wanted a sweet babushka kind of character who also didn't allow herself to be pushed around. But recalling my fondness for mouse characters when I was a child, I started to consider making Nonna Mela a mouse or mouse-like creature. In her current form, I've moved away from having a human face, although her face is more squashed than a mouse's face would be. In her current incarnation, Nonna Mela was once a mouse, a long time ago. She and her siblings found Teaset's cottage in the woods. It wasn't occupied by any humans, just a few other creatures from the forest, and a fairy, deep in slumber, unwaking. It made a wonderful home for a time. But eventually, Nonna Mela and her siblings found their minds changing. In her slumber, the fairy's magic was leaking. They began to think things that they had never thought before. They had strange dreams. Frightened, Nonna Mela's siblings departed. But Nonna Mela was curious about the fairy she saw in her dreams, and decided to stay, waiting for the day the fairy would wake from her slumber. Nonna Mela was once a mouse, but now she is not quite a mouse, not quite a fairy. Her mind and body have changed, and she is now seemingly immortal. There, when Teaset finally awoke, Nonna Mela is one of Teaset's oldest friends in the cottage. During tea time, Nonna Mela is happy to let the fairies have their pick of tea time snack. But if they can't come to an agreement on what to have, Nonna Mela will insist that they have her favorite, fruit. Mechanically, the minigame would give you different fruits depending upon which tie you got. So there would be a number of different options, not just one tie option. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching.